This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. We all know following England isn't plain sailing, on or off the pitch. And it's the same for the players, of course. And towards the latter part of last year, there was the discussion about England's lack of discipline on the pitch, following the 3 red cards in the Nations League qualifiers, and also the off-field antics of Phil Foden, Marcus Greenwood and James Maddison. Ill-discipline is nothing new, and it doesn't just apply to the players. Of course, there was Glenn Hoddle's sacking and Sven-Göran Eriksson being caught out by the fake shake. Or they're perhaps episodes for another day. Sam Allardyce too. But the aim of this episode was to focus on the players who have worn the Three Lions and let their teammates down. Now, according to EnglandStats.com, England's first yellow card appears to have been awarded to Nobby Stiles in the World Cup group game against France in 1966. And reading a Guardian newspaper article, it quotes, "A FIFA official who had been sitting in the Wembley stands issued a booking for the quaintly named crime of rough play the following day." However, though, on 18 occasions, England players have seen red. So let's start at the beginning. The first red card was given to Alan Mullery back in 1968. Not bad, considering their first game had been 96 years previous. Although it has to be said, red cards were only properly introduced to international football in 1970. During that year's World Cup. Mullery, a Tottenham player at the time, had that dubious honour of being the first England player to be dismissed. And it came on his 11th appearance in a European Championship semi-final against Yugoslavia in the 87th minute. It was England's 424th game, which we lost by a 0-0. A bad-tempered match, when Mullery had retaliated to a bad challenge. And he later said, "It was the worst moment of my career. I felt as if I had not only let the team down, but also my wife and my family. The player I kicked out at had been hacking at me throughout the game, and I just lost my temper. To be the first England player ever sent off is a record I will hate having to live with." And apparently, manager Sir Alf Ramsey paid the £50 fine received by Mullery. Next up was Alan Ball. 48 games later, away to Poland in 1973, in a World Cup qualifying match in Chorzów. England, wearing yellow away shirts, were 1-0 down when Ball, who was an Arsenal player at the time, became involved in a scuffle and received his marching orders. England went on to lose the game 2-0 and ultimately didn't make the finals in West Germany a year later. Incidentally, it appears Ball had previously been sent off for England at under-23 level back in 1965 in an away game to Austria.
And he looks as if the red card, he could be sent off. Ball's having a go at Szczesny. Now, who's off? Smikiewicz is the player who's limped to the touchline. The card was being brandished round, and there's some confusion there as the referee is not making himself clear. And Ball is being invited to leave. So England, 10 men left with 13 minutes left to play and 2-0 down. Not often that England have had players sent off in internationals. Alan Mullery was the last, and Alan Ball now joins what is a very short list.
In 1977, England went on a tour of South America, where they played Brazil, Argentina and Uruguay in the space of 7 days. It was the second game against Argentina at Boca Juniors La Bombonera in Buenos Aires that Trevor Cherry saw red. And it wasn't just him. Argentina's Daniel Bertoni went at the same time, both having previously been booked in the game. Now, it wasn't just Cherry that went. His front 2 teeth went with him, thanks to a punch thrown by Bertoni. This following a foul by Cherry, and the 60,000 strong Argentine crowd voiced their disapproval. Now, legend has it that Bertoni still has the scars on his right knuckle, thanks to that punch. And this was England's first sending off in a friendly game. So we've had sendings off in the European Championships, a World Cup qualifier and a friendly. The 4th player to be dismissed was at the World Cup finals.
I think it could be to our advantage. Waddle, I'm sure, will come over on the right-hand side.
I have to cut you short there, David, because Ray Wilkins has been sent off. His second bookable offence, and it's problems upon problems for England.
Ray Wilkins at Mexico 1986. At the time, he was acting captain as Brian Robson had gone off earlier in the game. And with England already having lost their opener against Portugal, they were up against it against Morocco in Monterrey. Having already been booked, Wilkins disagreed with an offside decision, and feeling the heat, he threw the ball at the referee. 10 men England held out before beating Paraguay 3-0 in the next game to progress. It would be 12 years later and another World Cup game when the next sending off occurred, and probably the most high-profile one.
White ball was required, and neither was that challenge on Beckham. And Beckham, now whether Beckham accidentally smacked into the defender, Simeone, the midfielder, I don't know. But Beckham's holding his head. I think a yellow card is going to be brandished here somewhere, and it might be to David Beckham. Now Shearer's telling Batistuta not to get involved. The 2 captains there.
Well, Brian, it could be a red card. That's what Alan Shearer's worried about.
What, for Beckham?
Yes, because he retaliated. And
it's a yellow card. Wait a minute, he's taking another card out for Beckham. It's a red card for David Beckham. Oh, no.
St Etienne, France. Argentina, again the opposition. And David Beckham, the recipient of Kim Morton-Nielsen's red card. Following a petulant kick-out at Diego Simeone, yes, he of Atletico Madrid fame, it led to one of the biggest public outcries against a footballer. The media went to town on him, seeing it as an opportunity to bring his wife, Victoria Beckham, into the story. And the Daily Mirror ran with the headline, 10 heroic lions, 1 stupid boy. And they also featured a David Beckham dartboard inside. Then there was the effigy, seen hanging outside a pub in Croydon, South London, wearing an England shirt with 7 on the back, and also a sarong. This, kids, is how social media was before the likes of Facebook and Twitter. England would leave the tournament an hour and a quarter later on penalties. But sadly, Beckham still hasn't been forgiven by some, and he'd see red again. But 2 years later, as England lost to Portugal in Eindhoven in Euro 2000, he was abused by a section of England fans, and he reacted by giving them the middle finger, which unfortunately was caught on camera. Following the World Cup elimination, England were next in action against Sweden in a Euro 2000 qualifier. Following the World Cup elimination, England were next in action away to Sweden in a Euro 2000 qualifier. The last thing they needed was to go down to 10 men. That was precisely what happened. Paul Ince felt the wrath and piercing eyes of Italian referee Pierluigi Collina.
Was a foul, but Sweden had the ball. And I'll tell you, Martin, if it's Paul Ince, and I think it was Paul Ince, and the referee thinks it's as serious as that, and I think, has he been already booked into, hasn't he, first half? Yeah. And he could be in trouble. He might well be off. He is off. Paul Ince is off, Martin. Second yellow card. Out comes the red, and England, in their first match since the sending off of David Beckham. Lou Ince, who's walked a pretty fine line in his international career and at times in his club matches as well, and he walks now to the tunnel, and England are down to 10 men.
England had gone ahead after 74 seconds, thanks to an Alan Shearer free kick. That was before Sweden fought back to win. But Ince's dismissal didn't help things. But he certainly didn't get the same treatment that Beckham had endured a couple of months earlier. Another Paul next. Paul Scholes. And it was Sweden again. The home leg of the European Championships qualifier. And he'd done himself no favours by getting himself booked in the first half with a rash challenge in the centre circle on Stefan Schwarz, drawing blood with a thigh-high challenge. And Schwarz was again the recipient when Scholes was given his marching orders in the second half, and in doing so, became the first England player to see red at Wembley. And it was a long walk to the tunnel in those days.
I don't think that's a bad goal. You've got Shearer winning headers. Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes becomes the first England player to be sent off in a home international. Another mistimed tackle.
Only one player to date has had his walk of shame be his last in an England shirt. That honour belongs to David Batty. His 42nd and final cap came away to Poland, September 1999. Again, a 2000 European Championships qualifying campaign. Batty, well, he was a player that was used to seeing red, and controversy was never far away from him. In this instance, with the game goalless, Batty made a late challenge on Radoslaw Mikowski with 6 minutes left. And with England having used all their substitutes, it left them having to hang on. And another thing with this particular game, still, to this day, it ranks as Channel 5's highest viewing figures, with 5.63 million of us tuning in that day. Alan Smith. No, not the former Arsenal striker who replaced Gary Lineker at Euro 92. Well, that pairing between them, they almost had a clean copybook. Only the one yellow card between them. No, this Alan Smith, formerly of Leeds and Manchester United, was next on the naughty red card list. Macedonia at home, or in this case, Southampton's St Mary's Stadium. This whilst Wembley was being rebuilt. It was 2002 and a Euro 2004 qualifier. Macedonia had already stunned England, taking the lead twice. And the first was direct from a corner that caught out David Seaman, who incidentally was playing his last England game. Alan Smith, though, was dismissed for a second bookable offence, picking up his first yellow in the 68th minute, then waiting until injury time to collect his second for a late foul. Up to this point in time, only one player has collected the most yellow cards for England, David Beckham with 19. And he also shares the most red cards, 2. He shares that with Wayne Rooney, and we'll get to him soon. Beckham's second came not just at home, but his former home of Old Trafford. Again, whilst England were on the road. Beckham was captain. Austria were the opponents. And Beckham was the victim of 2 yellow cards in the space of 2 minutes after 2 fouls on the same player. Fortunately, England won the game by 1-0, thanks to a Frank Lampard penalty.
Here's Ibertsberger. Oh, and Beckham's brought him down on the edge of the area. And is this going to be a red card for Beckham? Oh, goodness, it's all gone wrong now for England. He's already had a yellow, and the referee, Medina of Spain, has gone to his pocket again. And are we going to see the England captain sent off? We are. Well, there's no doubt what the headlines will be about now.
And we mentioned Wayne Rooney. It was his turn next. 10 games later, and England found themselves in Gelsenkirchen in a World Cup quarter-final against Portugal. Rooney, winning his 33rd cap, became embroiled in a challenge with Ricardo Carvalho, where he clearly stamped on him. Players from both sides gathered pretty quickly, including his Manchester United teammate, But on this occasion, his opponent, Cristiano Ronaldo, who expressed his disgust at the Argentine referee. Rooney walked for a straight red.
And an incident that might have passed off initially, without a card, ends in Rooney being sent off. Echoes of Beckham in St Etienne 8 years ago. And now England are up against it.
But that wasn't the end of it, as those of us at home, watching, saw the footage of Ronaldo winking at his Portuguese bench. They knew they had the upper hand now. England's 10 men took them all the way, but eventually bowed out on penalties. But Ian Wright and Alan Shearer, working as pundits for the BBC, well, they weren't happy.
They look at this.
Look at that. Is he just winked there?
I don't know, but I think there's every chance that Wayne Rooney could go back to the Man United training ground and stick one on Ronaldo.
Oh, no.
Another first now. Rob Green was the 102nd goalkeeper to play for England. He won 12 caps. However, on his 8th appearance, he became the first England goalkeeper to be dismissed. Away in Ukraine, October 2009, in a World Cup qualifier for the 2010 South Africa World Cup. On 14 minutes, he rushed out to claim the ball, missed it, and in the process, brought down Artem Milevski. Classic double whammy, penalty, sending off. On came David James at the expense of Aaron Lennon. Up stepped Andrei Shevchenko, who put the ball against the post and out.
Oh, there's a slip there by Ferdinand. Milevski goes through, brought down by Robert Green. Penalty. And it could be a red card as well for the England goalkeeper. Clear-cut goal-scoring opportunity.
But the young referee has had no option. Oh, and he's given the red as well.
Although Ukraine later scored to win by 1-0. Wayne Rooney was next, and he'd already felt the heat of England fans whilst out in South Africa, shouting down the barrel of a TV camera about England fans booing after the team's goalless draw against Algeria in Cape Town.
Nice to see your home fans booing you. That's what we're supporting.
And a year later, in the intimidating surroundings of Podgorica in Montenegro, Rooney again kicked out in the 74th minute, and in doing so, became the second player to be dismissed twice for England.
That was a bit of a wild kick there from Rooney. Wolfgang Stark came across, had a word with Wayne Rooney and showed him a red card, and England are reduced to 10 men for the remaining 16-17 minutes.
England were 2-1 up at the time in the European Championship qualifier, although Montenegro would go on to make us pay, equalising in the last minute. The new state-of-the-art Wembley Stadium had been open for 5 years. England had played there on 29 occasions, with no red card shown against them. This was to change on the 30th occasion. In 2012, and it was Captain Steven Gerrard against Ukraine in a World Cup qualifier for the Brazil 2014 tournament. He picked up a needless second yellow for a late challenge with only a couple of minutes left. And in terms of age and experience, possibly should have known better. He was the oldest to be dismissed at 32 years old, and he was celebrating his 98th cap. Minutes before, though, England had only just equalised. And again, it was Frank Lampard from the spot. From the oldest to the youngest.
Valencia with Sterling to think about, and he didn't hold out the challenge either, and Antonio Valencia has reacted to Raheem Sterling's challenge. I think the foot was particularly high. Jack Wilshere getting involved. I like Valencia to boil over like that. Phil Jones just trying to calm Valencia down. He'll know him better than anybody out there. Oh, it's a red card for both of them.
19-year-old Raheem Sterling was winning his 4th cap in a friendly against Ecuador, in a game being played in Miami, USA, ahead of the 2014 tournament. He'd only come on as a 64th minute substitute for Wayne Rooney, but 14 minutes later was dismissed for a bad challenge on Antonio Valencia, who was also sent off for retaliating as he grabbed Sterling by the throat. Never before had an England sub been sent off for an early bath. With Sterling a Liverpool player and Valencia a Manchester United player, seems their rivalry hadn't been left in the northwest. It would be 6 years and 72 games before the referee showed a red card in the direction of a Three Lions player again, and they were to come thick and fast. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, England hadn't played for 10 months, since winning in Kosovo in 2019, then 2020 in Reykjavik, Iceland, where there were no England fans within the stadium to witness it. Kyle Walker was dismissed for 2 yellow cards in a Nations League group game. A silly second challenge from Walker on his 49th appearance put his half-century in doubt.
Card comes out for Kyle Walker and he's off.
He's piled in there from a distance, actually, Kyle Walker. I thought his first yellow card was a bit harsh on him, a little nudge in the back on the edge of the box. But it put him on that tightrope and he's fallen off it. And he knows as soon as he catches his man, he knows what's coming next.
Well, 20 minutes to go. And Iceland have 11 against England's 10.
Now, you'd think there couldn't be any more firsts for England to achieve when it comes to red cards? Well, you'd be wrong. It was another Nations League group game. This time at home to Denmark. 2 England players saw red in the same game. First, Manchester United's Harry Maguire, who was already suffering from a lack of confidence at his club, and he'd had some high-profile media attention whilst on a family holiday in Greece. He picked up 2 yellow cards in the first half for a couple of clumsy challenges. And the first, only 5 minutes in, so he was always going to be treading on eggshells. Then, on 31 minutes, the Spanish official sent him off. And with no one in the stands, because of COVID-19, it was a quiet walk.
Maguire has to stretch
he could be in trouble. He's off.
He has not been taken off for injury. He's been sent off for 2 yellow cards in half an hour.
England went on to lose the game 1-0, and with all chances of a second Nations League final extinguished, came probably the most bizarre sending off of an England player. The final whistle had gone, players were shaking hands. Chelsea's Reece James, who was then winning only his 3rd cap, began arguing with the official and said something he'd regret as he saw a straight red, and in doing so, became the least experienced player to be sent off and the second within 1 game.
And I think a red card has added, you talked about indiscipline from England. Gary, I think Reece James might have got into trouble there right at the end.
So there you have it. All 18 England sendings off. A few little curiosities from it all. 2 have been against Denmark, 2 against Ukraine, 2 Poland, 2 Sweden and 2 Argentina. 5 came in European Championship qualifiers. 10 of them were straight reds. And the most dangerous nationality of referee? A Spanish one. Over the years, 6 players have been sent off courtesy of a Spanish ref, and the second half is the most dangerous time, especially between the 80th and 90th minute. Both Gareth Southgate and Sven-Göran Eriksson were the unluckiest, both having 3 players sent off. Whilst the likes of Ron Greenwood, Graham Taylor, Terry Venables and Steve McLaren, well, they all got off lightly, not needing to juggle a team reduced to 10. And having players sent from the pitch can often divert the game in a totally different direction to what the managers had planned for. And that can go for the team who is still with 11 men. On 23 occasions, England's opponents have been reduced to 10. And probably a couple of the most notable ones. Back in 1966, Argentina's Antonio Ratin was sent off in the quarterfinals. And then, in 2002, Brazil's Ronaldinho was dismissed, again in the quarterfinals. Let's hope, going forward, we can have another prolonged period of staying with 11 men. Now, I should also mention the women, as they're no angels either. Over the years, I've been working on collating all the England women's results, teams, etc. And these can be found over at England Football Online. Still, some details do elude me, but from the research I've done, on 5 occasions they have been reduced to 10 women. And the first I can find was back in 2009. Casey Stoney received her marching orders as England lost to Italy. That was in the European Championship finals in Finland. 2010. Interesting one this, and possibly a first. England were away to Switzerland, and goalkeeper Rachel Brown, at the time, was adjudged to have pulled her opponent's hair, and it was later rescinded as the Swiss player admitted she had feigned injury. 2015, away to Finland in the Cyprus Cup. Gemma Bonner was sent off in the 89th minute. And 2018, away to Bosnia and Herzegovina in a World Cup qualifier, Alex Greenwood was sent off early in the second half. And then most recently, in the World Cup finals in France 2019, it was the semi-finals against USA, and Millie Bright saw red as the Lionesses lost 2-1. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I must credit both websites, englandstats.com and englandfootballonline.com, where I spent a fair bit of time researching. Both are great archives for England facts. And also the audio clips taken from the BBC, ITV, Sky, Setanta are used for additional descriptive purposes. My name is Russell Osborne. This has been the Three Lions podcast. You can follow the show on various social media channels. Just search Three Lions Podcast. And all previous episodes can be heard at threelionspodcast.com. Please, if you're going via iTunes, why not give it a rating or a thumbs up? Would be most appreciated. I'll be back with some more England content very soon. I hope you can join me. Cheers.